Yo, what up? This is a video answering a series of questions from one of my Patreon supporters, Jackson. Anyone who pays the $1 on Patreon gets to talk to me. I often reply in typewritten form, and sometimes I reply by making videos. When I don't reply, it's often because I'm lukewarm on an issue. I just have nothing to say about it. Sometimes people ask me for dietary advice, and it's like, dude, I am not the guy to get into the pros and cons of adding olive oil to your lima bean salad. I'm just not the guy to do that. There's so many vegans on YouTube who either really are experts in nutrition or claim to be. I'm not one of them. So, I try not to be rude, but there are some questions I don't answer. Not because they offend me. It's not because, this is the funny thing about the people in the gossip demi-monde. It's never like people asking for details about my divorce or something. Nobody wants to know. Nobody wants to talk to me about my divorce. It's not evading those kinds of questions. It's normally a question like, somebody wants to know about whether or not lemon juice actually reduces your rate of cancer or something. It's like, dude, not in my lane. It's just not my area of expertise. It's not an area where my opinion would be valuable. But it's flattering. Thanks for asking. Glad you'd like to know my opinion about olive oil or lemon juice or whatever. All right, so Jackson has sent me a bunch of questions that are much more political and therefore much more suitable for me to answer. The first one is, do I have any experience with Professor Jordan B. Peterson? Jordan B. Peterson is a university professor in Canada who recently emerged from obscurity into a kind of internet fame. Fame on the internet is largely arbitrary, if not entirely random. In his case, as in so many cases, it's really that he made the leap from old media to new media. So Jordan B. Peterson was covered in Canadian newspapers and on the Canadian TV news, and then he became this huge figure on the internet. So I'm not saying that to insult him, but very, very often fame on YouTube is an echo of some kind of fame or success that is in traditional broadcast media. Nothing wrong with that. Jordan B. Peterson, because of his fame, taking on a number of issues in terms of political correctness and specifically the issue of gender-neutral pronouns, laws requiring people to use someone's preferred pronoun, this kind of thing. I did look him up. I did try to watch several of his academic lectures on history and politics. And I have to tell you, long story short, this is not because I disagree with him politically, but to me, he just seems like an imbecile. He seems like a fatuous, self-indulgent idiot who has no idea what original research in political science really means, or in, history or politics, what have you. And the videos I saw from him, regardless of what his actual PhD is in, they were videos giving long lectures about, history and politics. They were in that category. He had a video I saw. It was a lecture basically about the history of communism. I know a lot about this. I got to tell you, it was just idiocy. It was not even at a level that would be impressive for a high school book report, let alone for a salaried professor. But, that's what he does. He's going to enjoy the little bit of fame that he has earned almost at random. He's having fun with it. I don't have any hate in my heart for the guy, but I don't want to watch another video from him ever. If he makes a video about veganism, I'll probably watch that out of interest, but I don't want to hear what the guy has to say. So there's another question. Can you expand on your commentary on third wave feminism and its influence on university campuses? So he is referring back to an earlier video I did that is Patreon exclusive. If you're paying the $1, you can try to scroll back and find that video, or I can give a link. I did an earlier video in response to the question I used to get all the time. Am I a feminist? Am I an anti-feminist? Where do I stand on that? And basically in that video I pointed out, look, there's a really big difference between first wave feminism and third wave feminism. And basically what I identify with positively is first wave feminism. And second wave feminism is okay too. But it's third wave feminism that's really been a disaster and has really discredited the good name of feminism. Now, I can compare that to a number of things. You guys have heard me say many times, I'm really concerned about the conduct of vegans discrediting the name of veganism. And that's quite a reasonable concern if you've been around for a while in the veganism game. There are people who discredit veganism. In real life, you deal with that, how misconceptions about veganism have become popularized by a subset of veganism or a crazy minority of vegans. this is asking me to expand on third wave feminism and its influence on university campuses. The big change in my lifetime is that third wave feminism went from being an ideology of the students to being an ideology of the professors. So back in 1997, I've got to tell you, the world of both university politics and high school politics was vitiated by third wave feminist ideas. But at that time, back in 1997, those were books that the edgy, hip, rebellious students were reading despite their professors. It was like a sense of rebelling against your professors or rebelling against your high school teachers to read these really extreme and crazy feminist, texts. Like, put it this way, at that time, the third wave feminist stuff was in the library, but it wasn't required reading in your courses, right? So it's very different. At that time, in terms of the spirit, it was grassroots from the bottom up. Now, one of my girlfriends, just one, was really kind of a woman who was brainwashed by third wave feminism back in those days. So that would have been like 1994 through 1998, she was into third wave feminism. And she eventually grew out of it. Like, I remember her talking to me about how specific claims that third wave feminists made about like the history of Europe, about the history of like persecution of witches and stuff. Like, there were all these really specific historical claims that were made in setting up the platform for this kind of feminist extremism, if you like. And one by one, she learned that those claims were not true, like what they were saying about the persecution of witches. Has plenty to say. So that was interesting. So, I mean, at some point, she just hit a tipping point where she realized, look, if they're lying about this stuff, they'll lie about anything. And I don't even think she took it much deeper than that. I don't think she didn't get interested in debunking third wave feminism. She just realized it was all bullshit. During the years when that girlfriend was with me, because we were together for many years, we did talk about feminism a lot. I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting. It'd be great to have her on the show. It'd be great to do a Skype conversation with that girlfriend now. Now she's married with kids, not married to me. She's married to some other guy, which is cool. Happy for her. I'm happy for him. Hope. To quote a rap lyric, go fuck up his shit instead of mine. I'm happy I don't have to deal with her bullshit anymore. I'm tempted to say more. Anyway, look, but it was interesting because when she was with me, I think she was really challenged by my view on gender in an interesting way, because I have a moderate, pragmatic, down-to-earth view of gender politics, which I think is very compatible with first-wave feminism, but it was totally incompatible with what she had been taught or what she had been brainwashed into by third-wave feminism. So that was a really interesting kind of contrast that I lived with. But look, at that time, third-wave feminism was the ideology of the students from the bottom up, and not so much the ideology of the professors from the top down. So now it's become totally intolerable, because it's become the ideology that students are forced to conform to and are graded on, right? Now, obviously, that's going to be different in every university department and every university campus. You really have to ask yourself, keeping it all the way real, is it worse having a professor who in that way forces the students to conform to third-wave feminism than it is to have a professor who forces the students to conform to Christianity? Because that's incredibly common. There are literally millions of people are Christians, and thousands of professors do that, make Christianity part of what defines their curriculum and what they expect of students in the classroom. And my honest answer is no. I mean, third wave feminism is fucked up, but having a professor who genuinely believes in Catholicism or Protestantism, I think it's easy to ignore. It's easy to treat as invisible. Just how that totally destroys the quality of university education. And I would say the same is true in most cases of a professor who really believes in Islam. Buddhism, sometimes better, sometimes worse. I've met some totally insane professors who believe in Buddhism. A lot of people are fucked up in Buddhism, and it fucks up, what their students are getting out of the classroom experience in university. Sure. In some cases, Buddhism can be even worse than Christianity. But in most cases, it's true. Most Buddhists just don't take it that seriously. It's hard to take some of that stuff seriously. Like the idea that a Buddhist monk can magically teleport up to the heavens and have a conversation with Indra and then teleport down to the ground. The extent to which Buddhists do not take their own religion seriously is proven by the fact that so few Buddhists actually believe in Indra. If you don't know who Indra is, fucking Google it. Indra is part of the religion of Buddhism. He's a huge part of real Buddhism. But nobody believes in Indra anymore. So, all right. So look, I know this is not really the reply you were hoping for. Is third wave feminism going to be the death of freedom of expression? But that is my reply. Is Christianity on campus the death of freedom of expression? Yes, it is. It fucking destroys. How about Islam? How about any of these repressive religions? All of them are worse than third wave feminism. Even though third wave feminism is fucked up, there's no way I can see it as being as negative and nor as durable as those big religions. And if you look at the history of any one campus, including University of Toronto, in general, you're going to find that those religions have played that warping and censoring role in the not too distant past. Question: would you care to talk more in general terms of the value of postmodern philosophy? Does it have any value when standing on its own, or will it inevitably lead people to try to tear down the hard-won advances of modern civilization? I do think that postmodernism is one of those categories where you have to deal with each author on a case-by-case case-by-case basis. One person associated with postmodernism just doesn't have very much in common with the others, politically or philosophically otherwise. So, and, your basic question here is, does it have any value? My answer is no, but, I really try not to waste people's time. You may not believe it from this video, 11 minutes into this video. You may think, you're wasting my fucking time, Eisel. Well, look, I saw a post on Twitter recently from another vegan, much younger than me. I think she's 21. And she had a reading list posted of the books in political philosophy and veganism that she was apparently going to read. She was challenging herself to read in the next few months of the next year. And I'm looking at these books thinking, this is such a fucking waste of your time. I mean, really, compared to just hanging out on YouTube, in terms of what's going on in veganism now, I've been reading a lot of academic publications on politics and veganism, as you will have noticed, because I've been posting book reviews. To me, that stuff is a waste of time. There was a comment from Sargon of Akkad where he was talking about what a great use of your time it was to read Jean-Jacques Rousseau and the treatise by John Locke. And I'm sitting there, honestly, I come out of a political science, political philosophy background, and I'm just listening to this thinking, this is a complete fucking waste of people's time. And what he was saying about those books, the specific praise he gave them, they were great books for understanding this and that, X, Y, and Z problem in politics today, I think is not true at all. I've read all those books, obviously. I'm just sitting there thinking, God, a lot of these people take it really lightly to waste somebody's time by telling them to read a book. Maybe especially if it's a book that has philosophy on the cover. But no, so this is my caveat to saying, do I think postmodern philosophy is worth reading? No. But a lot of stuff that other people think is worth reading, I consider a complete waste of your time. Just salience to actually solving problems. Keeping it real with you. Maybe my standards are very high. Maybe in some ways they're very low. But no, I can't think of anything in that category that I recommend anyone reading. Final question. Does Trump's election represent a pushback against postmodernist influence? I would say no. I would say that Trump's election represents the completely incoherent final answer to neoliberalism. And, the critique of neoliberalism is what I've been engaged in since fucking 1997 in a lot of ways, right? And it blows my mind that there is no... what comes after neoliberalism? What's next? The discourse politically has just halted at neoliberalism and disintegrated. It's bizarre. The total lack of imagination of any political philosophy, of any political science, of any discourse, of any debate after neoliberalism shows this tremendous paucity of, I guess, just intelligence in the last 20 years. It's nuts. So, Trump, in his way... He represents a next step after the collapse of neoliberalism. Now, I can't call neoliberalism a failure. It's not. Neoliberalism has been a tremendously successful political ideology. It's one of the most successful in the history of the world. However, it has limitations. It has failings. It has both advantages and disadvantages. And remarkably few of my professors were ever willing to speak in those terms, those kinds of pragmatic. Okay, let's look at neoliberalism honestly. Let's say what it's good at, what it's bad at, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages. Compare neoliberalism to the government of Saudi Arabia. You fucking kidding yourself? Come on. Neoliberalism is not that bad, people. A lot of people want to demonize it from one perspective, and I don't know. I don't even know if anyone's praising it anymore. But neoliberalism had many serious, obvious failings that nobody seems to have engaged in intelligent critique of. And just answering your question, Trump's election, Trump was the only guy on the whole spectrum who was anti-neoliberal, who was just not neoliberal. And he didn't even explain why. I mean, he just totally incoherent way. Trump just says free trade is bad. And he doesn't even say free trade. He says specific free trade deals are a bad deal. He'd rather have protectionism than a bad deal with Mexico. And there's nothing more to say about it than that. He wants to have more factory jobs. He complains about unemployment at a time when unemployment in the U.S. is around only 4%. 4% unemployment in America in the 21st century. And you're saying there's too much unemployment. Trump was a really sloppy, incoherent critic of neoliberalism. You can't even put together a critique from it's like the same thing with Trump's position on corruption. What does it mean? He just says drain the swamp. Like, in a sense, it's a really meaningful reaction to what became normal in 20 years of neoliberalism. But there's no way I can even describe this as a critique. There's no way I could even tell you at the time of his election what was Trump's plan. How was he going to change the rules for how elections proceed in the U.S., or how was he going to eliminate corruption? You just know he doesn't like it. You just know that Trump has been living with it. I don't know if you guys remember, but even before he became a candidate for president, Trump used to have videos that were up on YouTube and on Twitter or whatever, where Trump was just ranting about how much he hated these politicians who asked him for donations and how corrupt they all were. Trump is a critic of neoliberalism because he was a part of it, and he was pissed off with it. He hated wasting his time and wasting his money, and he hated seeing both sides, the Republicans and the Democrats, taking bribes. He hated it. And again, he hates the free trade agreements, and it's just an emotional reaction. I understand. So, he's elected, but there's an onus on us. I really do mean us, including me. I am a political scientist. I'm a political philosopher at my incredibly low level. Why have we failed to elaborate any kind of meaningful discourse post-neoliberal political discourse? It's just a joke. It's just ridiculous. And now, Trump, it's like I said, back when we did the Canadian elections, 1 year ago now or whatever, it's not that long ago, I was saying, look, whatever party actually takes an anti-war position is going to win this election, and pretty much nobody did it. You get to a point where some of these deep assumptions about war, Trump became the anti-war candidate. In the primaries, he was completely pro-war. But then when he was running against Hillary Clinton directly, Hillary Clinton was so pro-war, was so wanting to expand the bombing of, Syria and all this shit, that Trump became the anti-war candidate. So he won. So he's pro-torture but anti-war. It's ridiculous. But when you let the intellectual caliber of political discourse drop to this incredibly low level, when you fail to articulate, just disambiguate what the options and opportunities are in politics, that is part of the role of a political philosopher, of a socially engaged philosopher, is to look at the murky mess of a situation and say, look, people, these are our options. These are our choices. You've got a mess of information, and I'm going to clarify for you what really are the forks in the road ahead of us. We have had far too little of that going on in the last 20 years. And in that incredibly intellectually impoverished climate, Donald Trump, of all people, ended up being the anti-war candidate and the anti-neoliberal candidate and the pro-poor candidate, the pro-working man candidate, the pro-working class candidate, pro-factory worker. It's completely surreal. It's completely ridiculous. But no, to me, I wouldn't describe that as being connected to postmodernism one way or another. Thank you for your questions, Jackson. It's been nice talking to you.